In this video, we're going to show how to create a process, a workflow process that supports dependent tasks. The context here for this one was when an order is placed or a request is submitted that has certain tasks that are completed or have to be completed before on-site tasks can be completed by field services. And so what I'm going to do is just walk through the setup of that, walk through the execution, and just explain some of the moving parts here. So the first thing we're going to do here is go over to the catalog, and I'll show you a few of the items that I created just to put a test harness around this scenario. So I created a few, well actually two on-site items and two on-site prereq items. And all these items are doing, so these on-site items are kicking off an on-site task workflow, which I'll show in a minute. And the prereqs are kicking off on-site prereq workflows for the on-site prereq item. So we wanted to have all of these ordered at the same time. So in this example, or the context would be an order guide would walk someone through and they would select multiple items. And in this case, I've just made them all mandatory, but order guides give you control over what is required and what isn't required. Again, the purpose of this is just to provide a test harness example. But when I go down here to this rule base within our order guide, you can see that there are 4 items in our order guide. And then if I go to workflow, or actually I'll go to one of the workflows just to give you some context there as well for one of the items. So go back to the on-site item, on-site task workflow. When I go to the workflow, all this workflow is doing is creating a task. And so in that task, we're simply setting a couple of values here. We're setting that the on-site, we're setting the short description to on-site task, and we're indicating, I added a field to the task indicating that it was an on-site type of task, and we're setting that to true. You don't have to actually use script to do that. Let me just show you how this looks when I check this out. So basically you just set the values this way. You just type in on-site task for the description. And you can see I've added this field called on-site, and I've set that this is an on-site task. So I've set this to true. And then for the prereq items, let's come back over to one of the prereq items. And for that workflow, on-site prereq workflow, same thing. It's just creating tasks. But in this case, on-site prereq is true. So we're indicating this is a prerequisite before on-site tasks can take place. And so I'm just indicating that in the task so we can check for that in the request workflow that I'll show here in a few minutes. And then we've just set the short description to on-site prereq task. So this is just some of the plumbing that I had to put in place to show this scenario. So what we'll do now is go to the catalog and we'll place an order. So I've created the order guide and put it in the services category here. Just called it on-site bundle. And when I click on that, you could put pictures and wording here, etc. Again, this is just a test harness for this example, so I didn't put anything there. But when I choose to select options, the 4 items that this order guide is going to allow us to select are these 4 here. So on-site prereq 1, and I've just put a basic description in here. And again, all of these tabs could show images and wording and have pricing information, etc. This is just for testing, so I've just left them all pretty much empty. When I click checkout, what will happen here is we'll have an order that contains 4 items. On-site item 1, on-site item 2, prereq item 1, prereq item 2, and then if we come over to our request, what's happened is that those 4 items are part of our request, and there's a workflow at the request level, and I'll get into this here in a minute. But the idea is that this workflow is running at the request level, and it's basically waiting initially for 30 seconds, letting those items get ordered and the database settle down. You know, all the records getting added, and then once, so I've set it to 30 seconds. You could probably tighten that up to just a few seconds, but this run script, what it's doing is looking at all of the items in the request, and then all of the tasks related to all of the items in the request, and determining whether or not there are any items that are on-site prereqs, and if there are and they are not complete, then what it's going to do is continue to wait. So I suspect when I refresh this, yep, it's gone through. So it's gone out of the timer, it's run that script, which I'll show you here in a second, and so it's still in a wait state because there are a couple of items that are on-site prereqs that we want to wait until those are complete before we create a new task that'll wrap the on-site child items, or child tasks I should say. So let me come back here and we'll go into our on-site prereq 1 item, and that has one task associated to it, and it's in a state of open, so I'm just simply going to put that into a closed complete state. We're going to go back to on-site prereq 2. It's got one task associated to that item. I'll go ahead and put that into a closed complete state. And so now our parent workflow, when I refresh it, so it's still in its loop, so it's waiting on this timer here, and again I've set this to 30 seconds. So we'll have to wait a few seconds here, and then we'll continue once it goes and determines that there are no longer any on-site prereq items. Oh, there it is. So what's happened there is because we completed those tasks that were related to the on-site prereq items, it's now released the other items, or basically in this case, in this example, created a task that wraps the two on-site items and assigns those items to field services. So when I reload this form, what we'll see now is you can see a catalog task has been added at the request level. We've called this, well, we didn't give it a name, I guess. Well, yes, I did. Here it is, on-site parent task, and that has two child tasks associated to it, and those are on-site tasks. So the idea here is that the request, while the request is being fulfilled, until all of the prereq tasks are completed, we will not create a parent task assignment to field services. Once the prereq tasks are completed, we will create a new task, and we will call it on-site parent task. In this example, you can call it whatever you want, and then we've associated these child tasks. So that way, when someone from field services goes on site, they'll have one task, and in that task will be all of the child tasks that have to be completed while they're on site. And so one last thing I'll do here is just show you the workflow script so you have some context there. And so I'll go here real quick to workflow, and we'll look at the on-site workflow. So this is what you saw at runtime when we were waiting and it was iterating through here. So when I check this out, this is all the script that was required to do that pause. And so what this is doing is iterating through and looking at all of the requested items and then all of the tasks that are related to each requested item and determining whether or not they're an on-site prereq. And if they are, and they're not completed yet, so they're not in a state of closed complete, then we're going to continue to wait. If we don't find any of these, we're going to continue, and that's going to release the flow down the continue path and run this script. And this script is creating our parent task for field services and associating the on-site tasks to that parent task. So that's how that all works.